The Russian army is currently suffering horrific losses in Ukraine, while at the same time failing to achieve any meaningful territorial gains. Near Pokrovsk, Russian forces have largely stalled. Ukrainian troops continue to hold the northern part of the city, and despite months of brutal fighting, Moscow has failed to secure full control. And while the failure to capture Pokrovsk alone already represents a serious setback for the Kremlin, the situation on other fronts has become even more dramatic. In Kupiansk, the Ukrainian army launched a successful counteroffensive several weeks ago, encircling hundreds of Russian soldiers inside the city. That pocket has now been completely eliminated, and Kupiansk appears to be once again fully under Ukrainian control. What makes this battle particularly shocking are the losses Russia suffered there. Ukraine managed to massively grind down Russian forces, even while attacking, without suffering heavy losses of its own. So just how catastrophic is the situation for Russia in Kupiansk? And can Kyiv repeat this success elsewhere? That's exactly what we're analyzing in today's video. That the Russian army is suffering enormous losses in Ukraine is nothing new. Since the start of the full-scale invasion, Vladimir Putin has effectively burned through more than 1.2 million Russian soldiers. According to the British Ministry of Defense, Russia has likely suffered over 1.2 million casualties since the invasion began nearly 4 years ago. In the past month alone, Russian losses averaged around 1,100 soldiers killed or wounded per day. From August to December 2025, Russia's daily casualty rate continued to rise. And while these losses coincided with only minor territorial gains, the British MOD expects the high casualty rate to persist well into 2026, largely due to continued dismounted infantry assaults across multiple fronts. To put these numbers into perspective, another comparison is even more revealing. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia captured just 0.8% of Ukrainian territory in 2025, while losing around 420,000 soldiers in the process. That is equivalent to roughly 35 Russian divisions. In other words, Putin sacrificed 35 divisions in a single year to gain less than 1% of Ukraine. At the same time, Ukrainian losses actually declined. According to Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky, Ukrainian casualties dropped by 13% in 2025. Syrsky stated that Ukraine has learned how to systematically exhaust Russian forces while preserving its own manpower, laying the groundwork for future operations. This success is largely the result of Ukraine's rapidly evolving warfare doctrine. Kyiv no longer relies only on massive FPV drone strikes, but increasingly deploys ground-based robotic systems, so-called UGVs, which are now regularly conducting successful combat missions. And while Russian losses were severe across the entire front, one city in particular turned into a death trap for the Russian army. That city is Kupiansk. Looking at the battle for Kupiansk more closely, Ukraine's success is nothing short of remarkable. Since the summer of 2025, Russian forces attacked the city from 3 directions and gradually established positions even inside the city center. For a long time, it appeared that Russia was on the verge of capturing a strategically critical logistics hub. Kupiansk is a key transport node and for a long time served as the main connection to Ukraine's bridgehead east of the Oskil River. Its capture was personally important for Vladimir Putin. On November 20, 2025, Russian Chief of the General Staff Valery Gerasimov publicly claimed that Kupiansk had been fully captured. Putin echoed this claim, invited international media to the city, and awarded the local Russian commander the title Hero of Russia. But it was a lie. Ukrainian forces were never fully expelled. In early December, Ukraine launched a highly effective counteroffensive, cutting Russian supply lines, pushing Russian units back, and encircling roughly 200 Russian soldiers in the city center. And instead of international journalists visiting Kupiansk, it was President Volodymyr Zelensky who arrived there. Russia failed to relieve the encircled troops. Ukraine remained on the offensive and systematically cleared the city block by block. According to Ukrainian sources, there are now likely no Russian soldiers left alive in Kupiansk. The Katyia brigade has regained control of the city hall and raised the Ukrainian flag. Ukrainian units continue search and clear operations, including strikes on buildings where Russian troops were hiding. But the most devastating aspect is revealed by one single statistic. To understand the Russian problems, we have to know one thing. In roughly 90% of military operations, the attacker suffers significantly higher losses than the defender. In Ukraine, Russia has already paid an enormous price by remaining on constant offensive for nearly 3 years. But in Kupiansk, something extraordinary happened. Despite being the attacking force, Ukraine suffered far fewer losses than the Russian defenders. According to British intelligence cited by The Times, Ukrainian forces killed 27 Russian soldiers for every Ukrainian soldier lost during the battle for Kupiansk. A 1:27 casualty ratio. In an offensive operation, this is devastating for Russia. If Ukraine wants to retake its territory, it must maintain lower losses than Russia. Kupiansk shows that, under the right conditions, this is possible. The key question now is, was Kupiansk a one-time success? Or can Ukraine repeat this elsewhere? But before we answer that question, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more military breakdowns. Well, Ukraine's success in Kupiansk was based on a clear strategy. Russian forces were allowed to advance, but at enormous cost. Over months, Ukrainian units systematically bled Russian troops dry, cutting supply routes and isolating units until the entire Russian formation collapsed in early December. And that same scenario may now be unfolding in Pokrovsk. Russia has been fighting for this city in southern Donbas for nearly 2 years and has been engaged in urban combat for months. Despite repeated claims of full capture, Ukrainian forces still hold the northern part of Pokrovsk and continue operating even further south. According to Commander-in-Chief Syrsky, Pokrovsk and nearby Mirnohrad remain among the hottest sectors of the front, but Ukraine is holding the line. Russian losses there are staggering. Multiple Ukrainian sources report that Russia is losing nearly an entire battalion per day around Pokrovsk, and the effect is visible. For weeks now, Russian forces have failed to advance, despite Putin continuing to throw wave after wave of soldiers into the fight. In reality, they are not gaining territory. They are simply marching into death. The stalling of the Russian advance may only be the first phase. The longer Russian units remain engaged around Pokrovsk, the more degraded they become, until Ukraine can exploit weak points, isolate sectors, and repeat what happened in Kupiansk. Ukraine wouldn't need to encircle the entire city. Isolating smaller pockets and cutting supply lines could be enough to trigger another collapse. According to the Kyiv Post, Russia's winter offensive of 2026 near Pokrovsk has already hit a catastrophic wall, with confirmed infantry losses reaching a 15.1 ratio in favor of Ukrainian defenders. Putin's great offensive is turning into the destruction of his own army, live in real time. First in Kupiansk and possibly soon in Pokrovsk,